Halloween events have been a staple of TDS ever since the game first began. Last year we got the Lunar Overture event, which was very polished. However, the finale was a rushed buggy catastrophe, so there was a lot of weight resting on this event's shoulders to make up for the previous year's mistakes. Would it be able to maintain the quality whilst avoiding the many mistakes that caused it to fail? Well, yeah, it was okay. In this video, I'm going to do a full review of the entire event. The knights, the towers, the battle pass, the whole lot, and give my overall opinion. But before we begin, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And without further ado, let's begin.
I must say, I'm unimpressed.
Night 1 is set in an apocalyptic town, where the players have to fend off against the children of Exo, who are trying to open a portal leading to Lord Exo. Narratively, I think this is a really cool idea. It's very similar to that one season of Ninjago where the Sons of Garmadon try to revive Lord Garmadon, but it feels weird that this is the game's formal introduction to Exo. For those who don't know, he's meant to be the big bad of the game who occasionally shows up in trailers, but that's pretty much it. Most players aren't going to know who he is, and it's probably just going to confuse them. The map itself looks great, however it's pretty lackluster. It's quite dull and doesn't try to do anything special, and sadly the map doesn't transform like in the previous events, which I was quite sad about. The enemies are these wasteland zombies that the children of Exo are mind controlling. Unlike the map, they look very nice but are really dull. They all look pretty much the same and there's no special mechanics to vary the gameplay, the only exception being the synaptic, which I do find pretty cool. The final boss is Titus, one of the children of Exo, with a slightly odd Australian accent.
I must say, I'm unimpressed.
As for his stats, I'll just be covering the hard mode ones. He has 40,000 health and 2 abilities. He fires a purple laser which applies a 150% fire rate debuff, and he summons a horde of enemies whilst giving himself the aggro buff. And that's it. Like the Fallen King, the lack of attacks just makes it quite boring to fight him. During the fight, he'll just rotate between the 2 attacks until you eventually kill him, which just makes it feel quite dragged out and boring. In terms of design, he looks pretty cool, but feels very out of place because he's just so big. For the fact he's regular size in the cutscenes, it feels strange for him to be so big with no explanation given. I get he's a boss, but it just looks odd and I don't like it. In the end cutscene, the towers confront Titus, who has been shrunk, again with no explanation, and then they get sucked into a portal. The end. Overall, Night 1 was a really polished but basic map, which felt very plain and boring. It doesn't try to do anything exciting or different, making it feel like the regular game with a fresh coat of paint. But it was still solid, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. The new Battle Pass system has seen drastic changes compared to the previous one. The old one had one track with about 6 to 16 rewards, which would require about 5,000 of that season's currency to unlock. Now there are 2 tracks, one free and one paid, and there are 40 levels, which costs 27,000 currency to unlock. Now, like many people, I don't like these changes. My first issue is how grindy it is. The amount of currency needed to unlock all the levels is 6 times more than it used to be, but you don't gain that much more currency or have more time to finish it to compensate. Previously, you could get about 600 currency in an hour, so it would take about 8 hours to finish the entire thing. Now the fastest method gives you 1,000 currency, so it would take you 27 hours to complete. I do not have the time nor the desire to grind the game for over a day straight to get these rewards. Honestly, I probably won't even finish it as there are other things I'd much rather do. It's clear this is just a way to farm premium payouts and I hate it. I get that the developers need paying, but this just feels unnecessarily scummy. Now before I move on with the rest of my opinions on the Battle Pass, I'm going to quickly rank all the skins. King of Rock Scout. This Elvis skin is great. Scout looks so snazzy and it's just a fun skin, 8 out of 10. Aerobic Soldier. This skin is simply mid. It's not awful and his 80s look is fun, but it does look a bit weird, especially at max level. 6 out of 10. Dance Fever Shotgunner. Like Aerobic Soldier, he's a pretty funky guy, but he looks very basic and looks super goofy at max level. 5 out of 10. Wasteland Militant. He looks kinda cool with the Wasteland Survivor outfit, but I think the color scheme is just a bit weird. The yellow stands out a lot and not in a good way. 5 out of 10. Wasteland Commander. A solid skin that looks very clean, but it's just kind of basic. It doesn't do anything special, which is just a big letdown. But his APCs are awesome. 7 out of 10. Freddy Warden. This skin resembles Freddy Krueger, and it does go kinda hard. Nothing really stands out, and it is fairly standard, but it is pretty cool. 7 out of 10. Disco Accelerator. Okay, this skin is pretty awesome. It's a very fun skin, and I love the custom animations and beam effect, and it looks super cool at max when it starts to go. 9 out of 10. Frankenstein Ranger. It's a fun skin and looks pretty clean and has a great design, but it's very standard and doesn't try to do anything special with its Frankenstein theme. 8 out of 10. Wasteland Military Base. This skin is amazing. The car looks fantastic at every level. I particularly like the level 4 tank, which just looks awesome. And the base itself looks very nice as well. Without a doubt, a 10 out of 10. Road Rage Minigunner. Without a doubt, this skin sucks. What is that hair? It looks super weird and looks even worse when it's red at max level. The bike looks odd, and overall the skin is just basic and looks bad. 3 out of 10. Wasteland Farm. This farm skin resembles an oil rig, and it's pretty nice. The fact it's all animated is really cool, and the oil rig at max level looks very nice. 8 out of 10. Garage Band DJ. Okay, this is epic. The animations are great, the speakers are cool, and it just looks fantastic overall. And at max level, it is ridiculously good with the drummer at the back and the DJ standing on a crash car. The song is also really awesome. 10 out of 10. As well as the skins, there are a lot of cool emotes, stickers, and name tags, which I'm all very fond of. But for now, I'm just going to focus on the skins. Although these are just my opinions, most of us can agree that the skins are a very mixed bag. Some being awful and some being amazing. However, my issue is that the majority of the skins I've found underwhelming are in the free pass. I don't mind that there is a paid track, as everyone needs to pay their bills, but I just wish that the free skins were better. It just seems really unfair for free players who grind the battle pass just for some pretty trash rewards. Despite having some excellent rewards in this pass, it just feels way too grindy with too many filler rewards, and also having a lot of underwhelming rewards, so for that I have to give it a 6 out of 10.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
In night 2, we go to hell. We have to fight the Hex spawn who are trying to kill us. Only issue is that we were the ones who landed in their home and started shooting them, so you really have to ask yourself,
are we the baddies?
This map is definitely a step up from night 1. The Hex demons all look fantastic, and there's a lot more variety in enemies. Not to mention the enemies have a lot more unique abilities. This just makes it a lot more fun to play. Another thing I like is the new mechanic introduced, the computer. The players have to spend money repairing the computer, and for each computer piece you miss, the boss's health increases by 7.5%, which gives them a maximum possible health of 3 million. This means the player has to balance spending money on the computer, but also spending money on defense, as it is quite a tough map. And speaking of the boss, this guy is awesome. The Conserver is a really cool looking demon with 400,000 health and 3 abilities. He can fire skulls that stun towers, he can spawn Forsaken skulls, and he can slam his mace stunning towers. Although he only has 3 abilities, the boss fight is a lot more fun compared to night 1, and I really enjoyed it. In the end cutscene, the towers grab the Hex cube and use it to leave the Hex after brutally murdering the innocent people there, but some of the monsters managed to follow them through the portal. Night 2 was significantly more fun than night 1. I thought the enemies, map mechanics, and boss fight were all spot on, and I was really impressed. However, it doesn't do anything too unique. 8 out of 10. Another thing we got was the slasher rework, which was kind of, sort of, entirely mediocre. The main feature of this rework is the bleed ability, which causes enemies to have tick-based damage once out of range, and if the enemy gets 30 bleed, it does a significant amount of damage. Not to mention, it received a huge buff, going from 78 to 236 DPS. Sounds great, right? Well, there are quite a few issues with this tower. First of all, whilst 236 DPS sounds like a big upgrade, it has no pierce nor stun immunity, and it's lost its ability to throw knives. Because of this, it struggles heavily on crowds and does mediocre against bosses. And as for the bleed ability, it's so pathetically weak and slow that it's not even worth mentioning. Against the Molten boss, 1 tick of bleed does 60 damage, and the max stacked is about 1,000, which is pathetic. And again, the lack of stun immunity makes it borderline useless against bosses. I was also disappointed by the slasher cosmetically. I will admit the old version was kind of ugly. It was really basic, and the red eyes didn't go over the normal eyes, so it looked super goofy. But at least it was an interesting idea, which tried to make him a little spooky. But now he's just a guy with a knife. Even keeping the spooky red eyes at the end would have been nice, but they didn't even do that. Overall, the slasher performs poorly, and it just looks a bit boring as well, so I have to give it a 6 out of 10.
That's a messed up looking dog.
In night 3, we return from hell back to the normal world where the Hex demons have followed us, and so we have to stop them from reaching the computer. Unlike previous nights, this map has 2 paths that cross over each other, making it a lot harder. I think overall this night was pretty cool. The music was great, the gameplay was pretty fun. However, the map was a bit lacking. Like night 1, it's just a desert, and I was hoping for something a lot more exciting for the grand finale. Also, most of the enemies are reused from the previous night, but it's not too bad as it makes sense in terms of the story, and they did introduce a lot of new enemies as well to make up for it. One thing I am annoyed about is that this mode is not possible solo. Before we get onto the boss, there are 2 mini bosses, Titus and the Conserver, who have returned from the previous nights having been corrupted by God Cube shards, and they both look great. Titus looks like a zombie, and it actually makes sense for him to be massive, and the Conserver also looks really cool in bright pink. And now for the final boss. the Primordial Draco Bloxer. I was so excited for this fight. He looked really cool in the lobby, and I was really anticipating this boss fight, and it wasn't that good. First of all, despite being absolutely massive in the lobby, he isn't that big in the game. I was genuinely hoping for something like 5 times the size of my Roblox avatar to storm around, but he isn't that intimidating. As well as this, his gimmick is that he ignores the path and just goes where he wants. It's meant to come as a big surprise and make him look like a super cool boss, but it just honestly just looks a bit goofy. He has a whopping 1.25 million health and 6 abilities. A Death Beam, Teleportation, Summoning, making a magenta aura, shooting skulls, and spinning violently with a laser. Not to mention, he has a rage mode, which is also really cool. I thought it was fine, but they really could have used his size a lot more to create a much more memorable event. However, my biggest issue for this night is just how laggy it was. On easy mode, it's fine, but in hard mode, it makes most devices run like a slideshow. I think optimization in the game in general is just abysmal. It's absurd that a Roblox game runs as poorly as it is on almost all devices, no matter how good they are. Although it was a little underwhelming, I would be lying if I said I didn't have any fun. Most of it was actually pretty good, but the final fight did fall a bit flat. 7 out of 10. In this event, there are 2 event towers you can unlock, one from easy mode and one from hard mode. The first one is Harvester. This scarecrow is unlocked by beating hard mode. The Harvester's gimmick is that it can create vines that slow down and deal tons of damage to hordes. And honestly, it's a pretty solid tower. The vines can do a lot of damage in a short amount of time to large hordes, so it's a really good crowd control tower. My only issue is that it's very reliant on the ability to be useful, and without it, its DPS is pretty poor. Another thing special about the Harvester is its second ability, Nature's Bond. Any farms in the Harvester's range will get thorns which deal additional damage. I find this such a niche and random ability that feels so out of place. I don't think it should have even been added, but I guess it's cool. In terms of design, I think it looks great. It's very basic on earlier levels, but on later levels, it looks absolutely fantastic. Overall, I give the Harvester an 8 out of 10. The Hallow Punk is the next event tower, unlocked by beating the event on easy mode. It shoots rockets that hits hordes and knocks them back. Now, as much as it pains me to say it, this tower sucks. Her rockets shoot painfully slow, the tower does barely any damage, the knockback is pretty much non-existent, and it's the first tower in the game to only have 3 levels. I understand it's for new players, and so it shouldn't be that good, but it would be nicer if it was less of a beginner tower and more of an intermediate tower, because I absolutely adore it. The design is absolutely fantastic. She's such a funky little guy with a really cool looking pumpkin gun, and looks really cool at max with the black and red design, and looks a lot like Pumpkin Minigunner, which is one of my favorite skins in the entire game. If it was just performance, I would probably give it like a 1 out of 10, but just because she looks amazing, I have to bring it up to a 6 out of 10. Another thing we got was 2 limited time mission skins. The first one is Jason Slasher, and it looks great. It's a big upgrade to the original Slasher skin, and it gives that spooky vibe I really wanted. It's a lot of fun, but I just wish they did a bit more on max level, as very little changes. 8.5 out of 10. Wasteland Harvester, on the other hand, is just plain ugly. I'm not sure what they were trying to do, but it didn't work. The robot legs look super weird, his hair is bizarre, and I just don't like it. I have to give points for max level, which looks alright though. 4 out of 10. The final achievement in this event is the Triumph of All Nights badge, which is what I'm doing in the footage in this video. This challenge involves you completing all 3 nights on hard mode consecutively without dying once. By beating it, you get the Hexscape name tag and the Titus charm. It's a fun extra challenge with some really cool rewards, and I think it was a neat little extra. I give it a 9 out of 10. Overall, the Hexscape event was polished but a little underwhelming. I was most disappointed with the Battle Pass, which was abysmally poor, being just a grindy cash grab with some really bad rewards. Everything else was solid, but I just wish it tried to stand out a bit more, like Krampus's Revenge and Lunar Overture. But besides that, it was still really good and I really enjoyed it. So overall, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. But let me know what you think. Was I too harsh? Was I not harsh enough? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yes, I've made a comeback at last. Shocking, I know. How long? I don't know. This might be the last video. Who cares? I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember?